Hi there, thank you all for coming. Before we get started today, I'd like you all to imagine something for me really quick. Imagine you just woke up, it's the middle of the night, and you're in a dark room. You're tired, you're confused, and you roll over to see a strange face in your bed. You don't know who this person is, how they got into your home. They are a complete stranger. It's pretty scary, huh? This is unfortunately a situation that people with Alzheimer's as well as their families deal with on a regular basis. My grandfather actually had Alzheimer's before he passed away a few years ago, and this is something that he and my grandmother dealt with on a regular basis. Okay. Alzheimer's disease is actually the most common cause of cognitive decline and can be quite a terrifying prospect for people who do know that they have a genetic history of it. But Alzheimer's disease is preventable if you're willing to take the necessary steps to prevent it. So I've spent quite a bit of time researching this topic as well as examining my own experience. Having, as I mentioned before, my grandfather had Alzheimer's, so I do have a firsthand experience with what the disease does to a person over time, as well as the more acute symptoms. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to be talking to you about what Alzheimer's is exactly, like the causes and the symptoms, how you can prevent the disease itself, and why exactly you should take the time to prevent the disease. Now, you all likely know a little bit about Alzheimer's. It's relatively common knowledge that it causes memory loss, but you probably don't know more about the specific symptoms and causes of the disease itself. Okay. Alzheimer's is actually a progressive neurological disorder that causes the brain cells themselves to die. Also the most common cause of dementia. There's a very common misconception that dementia and Alzheimer's are the same thing. They're not. Dementia is just the general decline in cognitive functions that happens as you get older, whereas Alzheimer's is a very specific cause. Symptoms of Alzheimer's include memory loss, obviously, behavioral changes, a lack of judgment, and a loss of social skills, as well as disorientation, and in the very later stages, a loss of motor function. It's believed to be a genetic disease that is inherited and is caused by damage to nerve cells and neurons responsible for memory as well as other brain functions. Scientists believe that this happens due to a buildup of beta amyloid plaques between the nerve cells, which causes them to die and for brain function to be inhibited. After time, Alzheimer's will actually cause your brain to shrink in size because so much brain matter has been lost over the years. According to the National Institute on Aging, damage initially takes place in parts of the brain involved specifically in memory, which is why it's the most notable symptom. After time, it later affects the cerebral cortex, which is responsible for language and behavioral skills, which is when we get into the later stages. Eventually, other areas of the brain are affected and Alzheimer's is fatal. Now, this probably sounds very scary, and it is, but there are ways to prevent it in its entirety if you're willing to put the effort into it, okay? According to the CDC, there is growing scientific evidence that healthy behaviors that have been noted to prevent other chronic health conditions such as cancer, heart disease, and diabetes can actually help prevent subjective cognitive decline as well, which is dementia and Alzheimer's fall under that category. In fact, in a very recent study published by the CDC, they found that people with at least one or more chronic health conditions were far more likely to report worsening or frequent memory problems. Now, what this means is that by keeping your body healthy, you can also keep your brain healthy, which makes sense. Now, here is where this applies to you specifically. You might be thinking that this sort of relevance doesn't apply to you. You might be thinking, oh, I don't have a genetic predisposition towards the disease, or I'm still quite young. I don't need to be worrying about that sort of thing. But Alzheimer's disease is a lot more prevalent than you may think, And in fact, people all over the world have the disease itself, but don't know that they have it. According to the Mayo Clinic, approximately 5.8 million people in the United States, 65 years and older, live with Alzheimer's disease. That's over 1 in 100 people. Out of the approximately 50 million people worldwide with dementia, around 60 to 70% are estimated to be caused by Alzheimer's disease. So it's, like I said, it's the most common cause of dementia and is very prevalent, a lot more prevalent than most people believe. So this isn't just some rare disease, it's an actual problem. Not only that, but the changes in the brain that cause Alzheimer's actually start to occur decades before the symptoms present themselves. Say you were diagnosed when you were about 60 years old. The thing is, the actual changes in the brain that cause the Alzheimer's to develop probably began to occur when you were about 40 years old. This means that it is very important for you to look after your brain throughout your life and be aware of Alzheimer's disease and other diseases like it so that you can keep yourself happy and actually stop the disease in its tracks before it happens. It's never too late or too early to live a very brain healthy oriented lifestyle. And you can do this by doing a couple things. One, quit smoking and vaping. That's actually a very common factor in Alzheimer's disease, as well as heavy drinking, and obviously just keep your body healthy in general, like exercising, your fruits and vegetables. Another thing that is linked with having Alzheimer's disease is chronic anxiety and depression. So get that checked out, as well as high blood pressure. And a very interesting one, sleep problems as well, like insomnia. Not getting enough sleep can lead to Alzheimer's. Okay. Because the symptoms of Alzheimer's don't begin to surface until years after the disease itself has actually taken place, you cannot wait until the last minute to try to prevent it. You need to be proactive in keeping your body healthy. What you do today can affect your life years and into the future. It can affect the rest of your life, in fact, which is why it's very, very important for you to keep your body healthy as well as keeping your brain healthy. Are there any questions? You.
What is the most prevalent symptom in like the early stages of Alzheimer's?
Memory loss, just short-term memory loss, like forgetting where things are, as well. Personality changes are actually something, very slight personality changes and just odd things that you know aren't something that this person would normally do can be an indicator. Yes. Any other questions? Ready?
I feel you may have covered this earlier, but what is the earliest when people generally start seeing signs of Alzheimer's? I know you said something around the 40s. Is that around that area?
So usually it's in old age in which you get diagnosed with Alzheimer's, but the actual changes in your brain will occur years before that, around anywhere as early as your 40s, because the plaque starts to build up in your brain before the symptoms can present themselves. Sidney?
Are there ways to reduce symptoms once you have it yet, or do we?
There isn't a cure for Alzheimer's, but there are ways that you can reduce its the advancement of the stages with doctor's visits. I don't know if there is medication. I think there are doctor's treatments for Alzheimer's to help slow the progression. Yes. Any else? Any question? No? Anybody? No? Okay, thank you all very much for coming.